speaking about libraries, global reach, and a local touch. Please welcome Barbara.
I brought my own stool. When you're vertically challenged, you learn that you need to be prepared for these tall podiums. It's a pleasure to be here as we celebrate the anniversary of our public library here. We are so fortunate to be in a place where we have a fabulous public library, and I see the director coming in right now, so it's wonderful to be able to speak to you all about libraries today. This was my theme when I was the president of the American Library Association 30 years ago, long time. In the back, I left some bookmarks and pins that I had as part of that presidency. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about mostly public libraries around the world. My last job was at the University of Illinois, where I was director of a Center for International Librarianship, where we worked in training and educating librarians around the world. This is a big week because we just had 13 librarians from 9 different countries arrive for a 2-week training session. So the center goes on, and despite the changes in our world, international librarians still want to come here to learn about our libraries. We always bring that group to the Champaign Public Library so they can see what's going on here. And we often go to the Urbana-Free Library too. It's nice to have 2 public libraries to show people. So ours is a small world, and information can build bridges and promote understanding among diverse cultures. Libraries offer access to worldwide information resources and local accessibility, thus the global reach, local touch. There are over 2 million libraries worldwide, about 410,000 public libraries, 85,000 academic libraries, and one of the latest things, there are over 200,000 of these little free libraries or book sharing boxes that you see in various places. Libraries are energized and connected through vibrant global professional communities, and we're recognized as partners by community and other organizations. Libraries are very, very important for the work that's done in our communities. Just a little bit about the history of public libraries. They're really unique to each country. And libraries change as the national situation changes, and they evolve slowly when there are limited resources or no impetus for change. They can be part of a societal change process, and during periods of turbulence and rapid change, they're often important for providing information to people. So some of the early public libraries were in Great Britain, starting in the 1850s. And of course, we know our library is 150 years old, so this was the time that libraries became very popular in our country. In some other parts of the world, in Africa, the development of libraries was rare until the 1920s. And in places like South Africa, there were subscription libraries, and these sometimes turned into a public library system. The British Council Office supported development of libraries in Africa and other places. After independence, there were public libraries in the English-speaking Caribbean, and the Carnegie Corporation and British Council helped to set up a lot of these. There has been very slow development of libraries in some countries like India, and I have a slide on some of the work that's going on there now. while private libraries developed early in Islamic history, public libraries are a recent development in most Islamic countries. But there's a lot of building going on now in places like the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, where they're building lovely new public libraries. And it's interesting because they respond to the cultural needs. In one of the public libraries that I visited in Sharjah, there are separate entrances for men and women and separate libraries. So libraries try to be responsive to the needs of a particular area. In places like Singapore, there are amazing libraries being developed, both the buildings and the collection. In China, public libraries didn't exist until the early 1900s when missionaries introduced them. But now China is building some amazing libraries as well. So it's interesting to see how these develop. So I wanted to talk as well as of the history of libraries. I'll really focus on the future of our libraries. And from what we know, the future of libraries will be human-centered, focused on what people and communities want and need. They'll be globally inclusive with ideas from around the world, information in different languages and different points of view. They'll be informed by diverse cultural perspectives. And so this is one of the challenges that libraries have, how they do all of these things in the world in which we live. And much of this is done in terms of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Have many of you heard of these Sustainable Development Goals? No? No. They're not well known in our country. In some other countries, they're very, very important, and countries develop their national plans and libraries develop their plans based on these goals. You can see that these goals cover a lot of different topics, that we eliminate poverty, that there's no hunger, that there's good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, since we know water is extremely important, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institution, and partnership for these goals. A lot of libraries work on a number of these, but the one that focuses on peace, justice, and strong institutions is often a very important one for libraries around the world. I think it would be very interesting if in the US we became more aware of these and focused more of our programming on these. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization and the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions have a public library manifesto. This is adopted by most countries around the world. This one's a little hard to read, so I'll focus on some of the things that it says. The Public Library Manifesto focuses on creating conditions for development of a democratic society, active citizenship, lifelong learning, independent decisions and cultural development of the individual and social groups. Its public library is a local information center and creator of community. It provides all citizens with equal and free access to library funds and service, access to information of all types, services in library premises, including remote access. It also provides people with specific needs, special services and documents, like people with limited vision and other special needs. It also, public libraries support formal and informal education, reading, media. Information and digital literacy has become a very important thing that libraries work on, helping us understand how we can use and find the information we need. There's also focus on personal development, creativity, cultural diversity, creation and sharing of knowledge, open access to scientific knowledge, and preserving and making cultural heritage available. And here is a very important point in the world in which we live. Public libraries should not be subject to censorship or commercial pressures. Luckily, we have not had those challenges here, but in a number of communities, public libraries and school libraries especially have been asked to remove items from their collections because someone in the community found them objectionable. These activities are often organized on a national level, and libraries have found that often people who request materials to be removed haven't even read them. You know, someone told them that some book was not good and it should be removed. So it's very important, as IFLA and UNESCO say, that libraries not be subject to censorship or commercial pressure. The mission of libraries has been expanded to include the development of media and information literacy and digital skills in the spirit of equipping informed democratic societies. So, very important purposes. The libraries have also really taken on new kinds of activities. I don't know if any of you have seen the Library of Things in libraries. I think Urbana Free has quite a display of the Library of Things that you could borrow from the library. Everything from specialized cake pans to sewing machines to fishing rods, all kinds of different things that you might want to use but not purchase for yourself. And this is an area that is new and different, and of course we have the example of the excellent lab here in the lower level that is focused on a lot of the new technologies and helping us have access to things we might not want to borrow and own ourselves. The changes too in what libraries are doing is interesting. So in Finland, they are teaching school children how to identify information and propaganda as part of the curriculum in schools. They score highest for media literacy in Europe, Finland. So a country that we could emulate in terms of that work. So the public library is a living force for education, culture, and information that's essential for fostering peace and welfare through the minds of all people. I've got a few pictures here of unusual public libraries around the world. This is in Scandinavia, where they have a public library on a boat that goes from town to town, offering the services that the library offers, because these villages are really only accessible from the water. is in Colombia, where they have biblioburros, where they take books to rural communities on horses or burros, and these are quite popular. I was in the Peace Corps in Central America and saw these kinds of activities working, where you go to the people where they are, take them the materials they need, kind of like our bookmobiles and other outreach activities. Bicycles. This is a book bike, where actually it's giving free books for children. And then the sign on the left is that there's bike repair kits at the library. So again, meeting people where they are with what they need. This is a library actually by the beach in Latin America, which I thought was interesting, and it looks like it could be closed up when it's raining or something like that. So again, an attempt to reach out. Have any of you been at airports where there's libraries where you could check out books? There's quite a few now in Europe where you can actually get a book and use it while you're there, and then some of them you could take it, and if you come back through that airport, you could leave the book. So it's just an example of how outreach is really expanding. These are two libraries in China. The one on the left is a very ancient library in a cave, where a lot of the information was actually written on the walls. And the one on the other side is one of the new modern libraries. China is just building some really incredible spaces for public libraries. Now the question is, what kind of information is provided there? They may not have the same kind of access that we do to all different kinds of information, but they have some gorgeous spaces. This is a project in India called Read India, and there's also a Read Bhutan and a Read Nepal. These were actually started by a woman from the US who led tourists to these countries, and she asked the local people what they wanted and needed, because she wanted to help them out, and they said, we want a library. So she works with the communities to set these up. And the model is, she helps them get started, find a building and get their initial collection, but then the community has to find a way to support the library. Communities do all sorts of things. Some of them have weaving that they make and sell. One of them has an ambulance that they charge people to use. Some of them raise cattle, so all kinds of things to support the public library. This I think is a really good model, because you help them get started, but then they have to support the library. And this organization is very good in talking about their impact as well. So it's pretty impressive. I've visited a number of these libraries, and they, as well as library materials, they often have training centers for skills that the community needs. Sometimes they have babysitting for children who need it. So it's a very innovative kind of community service, which is really excellent. And these are just a few examples of the kinds of things going on around the world. So everywhere, people think that libraries are essential civic infrastructure. And this has become even more important with all of the digital things that we need to access. As we know, that everybody does not know how to use all of these digital tools. I was just talking to the staff, and they were saying, people come to get help with all kinds of digital things, and we all learn as we help people. So this is very important. Also, workplace capability. Some of the wonderful programs that are done here to help people get better jobs, improve their skills are so important. So in addition to helping us enjoy ourselves with novels and movies and other kinds of things, libraries are also very, very important for helping us improve our skills. Libraries can only do this through partnerships. Local community organizations and industry are very, very important to help libraries do what they do. You will see that as you see programs advertised. It may be a business, it may be a local organization that partners with the library to help them offer broader services and share resources. So I wanted to talk about some of the global library challenges. As you know, the world's in a time of great change, and unstable economics can really be a challenge for public libraries because many of them are funded by governments and public organizations. And as needs change, the library may not have the resources that it had available before. And, you know, we've heard a lot about this at various places, even in our own state, and in a variety of libraries. It was quite a shock a couple of years ago when Western Illinois University eliminated all their library positions. And so you'll see these kinds of things happening, and it means that libraries have to be light on their feet and figure out how to continue to provide the resources even as they lose support. There's also the dramatic technological developments. We've all experienced this in our personal life, I'm sure, how we need to learn how to use all these new sources, and just when you get everything figured out, it changes. And so libraries can be very helpful in helping people bridge those divides, but they also have to be able to respond to those changes as they happen in their own community. Not such an easy challenge. There's also the issue of intellectual property rights. With artificial intelligence and some of the other activities that are going on, these property rights are really changing, and authors are concerned because these artificial intelligence groups are scanning their work and using it without their permission. So these intellectual property rights are quite something we need to be aware of. And libraries are quite aware of them because as we deliver our services, need to be aware of them. And of course, this also means that some information is delivered in different ways. For example, with electronic books, the library doesn't always own them. Sometimes they just rent them. So it's a very different way of proceeding, and we need to be aware of this. There's also, which I touched on before, the issue of censorship. This is a really, really big problem. The American Library Association tracks this, and there are so many examples of books being censored now. And we work with publishers and authors to work on these issues. But it's not simple, and it won't easily be solved. Also changing user needs. You know, it used to be people came to the library mainly to get a novel to read, or to get a reference question answered, or to bring their children to story hours, or things like that. Those services are all still used, but users want new things. And I think that The new service that this library is providing in the lab is an excellent example of that attempt to provide users with new services. So it's constant need to be aware of what your users want and how you can respond to that. And we can learn from one another in this, and we do. So Japan is an interesting place because their libraries have gone through a quiet yet significant transformation. They're not viewed any longer just as a repository for books. They're being repositioned as community hubs and as part of the infrastructure that strengthens social cohesion, supports healthy aging, this is a whole new area for libraries too, and enhances social resilience. They provide access to information, host events, and create gathering spaces that encourage people to leave their homes and engage cognitively and physically. Cultural accents are becoming strategic in what we do. Some of the other new kinds of services we're seeing are seed libraries. And I think, again, locally, one of our libraries has this, where people collect seeds and share them. And you could get your seeds at the library, you don't have to purchase them. And they often do excellent programs, like the program that was here a month ago on gardening to help people use these seeds and have good gardens. There's also, and I thought this was interesting, I don't know, Sunday morning, did any of you see the show on the human library? Yes, very interesting. This is, and it focused on, I think, Finland, where there is a human library, but we've also done this locally, where libraries bring in people that have information on a topic, and you can come and check out a person and talk to them about a subject. This is extremely popular, and it also allows us to see the expertise that's available in our own communities. So it's a different world, and our local libraries are responding, and we need to take advantage of these services and also let the libraries know if there are services we want that they don't have. So it's an exciting time to work in the library field. I wanted to talk a little bit about international library development, since we have one of the only centers that works on this subject right here at the University of Illinois. The Mortenson Center for International Library Programs was set up by a scientist who believes that libraries are important for international peace and understanding. So he gave an endowment to the university to set up this center. And that's the Mortenson Center at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And that center focuses on training librarians. So as I said, right now we have 13 librarians from 9 countries who are here, who will be with us for 3 weeks and learn about libraries in the US. So they'll visit our local libraries, they'll go to classes, they'll go to Chicago, they'll go to Ohio, where the Online Computer Library Center, which our libraries depend on, is located. They'll go to Springfield and see some of the things being done there. So it's a very important library development program. And it focuses on training people. We don't build libraries, we don't give books, we train people, because that's the most important resource of the library. Other groups that have worked on library development, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. When I was at the Mortenson Center, we did a lot of work with academic libraries in Africa, supported by the Gates Foundation. This was quite challenging because these libraries were being funded to automate, but we would go to the library and every desk would have an enormous flashlight on it. Can you guess why? Electricity was not reliable. So they wanted to automate, but they didn't have reliable electricity. So the Gates Foundation worked with the government on the electricity, and they also provided some of the technology, and we worked on training the staff on how to use some of this new technology. Very interesting work. The Carnegie Corporation, which of course has a long history of supporting libraries, also works internationally. You'll find Carnegie libraries in a number of countries, and of course, we have quite a few here. They're still continuing to do some of that work, which is very exciting. Electronic Information for Libraries is a European organization that works on licensing electronic resources for public libraries. This is a very difficult thing to do, and a lot of libraries don't have the expertise to do this for themselves. So EIFL, or Electronic Information for Libraries, does this for groups of libraries. And they get their funding from various governments and are very, very effective. I talked about the Mortenson Center, Open Society Foundations. They've worked a lot in the former Soviet Union to modernize libraries. And we at the Mortenson Center did quite a bit of training there. A lot of the former Soviet Union countries had libraries, but the collections were pretty boring. So people didn't really use them. You know, they had a lot of, I guess I would say, propaganda and government information, and not much that was useful and wanted by people. So we really worked with them on developing collections that were of more interest to people. So there's been a lot of work internationally on libraries, as well as continuing to develop our libraries here in the U.S. So it's a very exciting time for information in libraries. There's lots of needs and lots of hope that libraries can continue to make our world and country more democratic, more inclusive, and more able to meet the needs of people. So it's quite a challenge, and I'm so glad that you all are library supporters and support our libraries here, because as I said when I started, we're so fortunate to have such good libraries, but they need our support. And we need to continue to be aware of their funding and programs. I brought some bookmarks and pins if you'd like them. These are left from 30 years ago when I was president of the American Library Association. And the pin basically says Libraries, Global Reach, Local Touch, as the bookmark does. We're about to go off. The American Library Association is meeting in Chicago this year. This is the association really that speaks for libraries. It lobbies in Washington, D.C. It it supports our Illinois State Library Association in getting the support we need and so forth. So there are associations that welcome non-librarian members and support. So there's an I Love Libraries site where you can sign up to support libraries. And in these times, I think it's extremely important that we support the institutions that are important to us and reach out and not only on the local level, but on the state and national level, give these institutions the support they might need. Thank you for listening. I'm glad to take any questions, and I also put up my email in case you want to be in touch later.